Uh, she wrote this. I know this is unpopular, but it will always be unattractive for grown men to play video games. Some women might be understanding or pretend like they don't care that you spend hours playing, but they do. It is extremely unattractive to women and will never not be. As of right now, that tweet, and her account has, 22K, not small by any means, but that tweet went viral with 5.8 million views. And the responses mostly were from gamers. There weren't very many people agreeing with her. I'll just say that. I'm really not surprised it went viral. I think, as far as like playing the Twitter game goes, it was masterful. I think she knew it was going to go viral because it was so blatantly antagonistic. So everyone was weighing in on it. Some people I thought were a little too antagonistic in their response. So my response was, guess I'll weigh on this. Lots of women find video games unattractive, but a lot don't. Women also find responsible men attractive. I would argue more than they find insert unattractive hobby unattractive. Spoiler alert for anyone who isn't married, as you get to know your spouse on a deeper level, you will discover things you find attractive and unattractive about them. It's normal. It's possible to love someone and not love everything about them. Also, your hobby can be the most attractive thing in the world, but if it stops you from being a responsible adult, spouse, or parent, it will quickly become the most unattractive thing in the world. Eamon says, question, why do boys play video games? Answer, the same reason girls put on makeup, to escape reality. Responding to that was what she wanted. I think she posted that more to get a response and play the Twitter game than anything else, which, hats off to her, she succeeded. But it is something worth talking about. I would, in general, agree that most women probably don't look at many of the hobbies that men have and think they are attractive. Both men and women have to learn how to look at their spouse's hobbies and at least respect them. Eamon says, indeed, there's an entire category of comedy that revolves around women not understanding men, their hobbies, and how irrational their anger becomes when seeing men at peace. Yeah, that's true. I have heard some of that, and I think it's just a difference in the way that men and women are. Part of understanding one another is not really belittling what the other person likes. Obviously there are exceptions to the rule. Like if any hobby becomes unhealthy, and by unhealthy I mean stops an adult from doing their responsibilities to each other or whatnot, as a parent or as a spouse, then it can become a bad thing. And obviously it has to be within reason. Just because someone thinks, if someone thinks that my hobby is unhealthy, we have to have a sit down and talk. And that someone in response to that posted another quote, like if there was an ultimatum of give up video games or lose your relationship with a significant other, which would you choose? And sadly, I think most people interpreted that as an ultimatum was given, and if you had to choose between one or the other, which would you choose? And obviously I'm married. It's like, well, of course I would choose my marriage over my hobby. But if such an ultimatum were given to me, I would have to initially accept, of course I'm gonna give up video games, I think, for the time being, to focus on my marriage. Because giving up the video games wouldn't really solve anything. That's a very big red flag that there are some very unhealthy attitudes in my marriage between both me and my wife, if that were like something that one of us seems to think is necessary. There wasn't a lot of nuance in the answers. Most people would be like, yeah, if I was dating someone and they said I had to give up a hobby, I would definitely give up that relationship. Which, obviously, at the relationship stage, like, if you're just dating someone and they give you an ultimatum like that, yeah, get out. That's not a healthy thing for someone to for someone to put on you. Given the state of the relationship, unless, of course, you're actually not being a responsible adult. There's a lot more nuance to this conversation than I think people want. Tim says, I think there are a fair number of people who fundamentally misunderstand how to be in a relationship with another person. If this person was sincere in this belief, that's perfectly fine, as it's a matter of preference. But the question is, why do you find it unattractive? Yeah, that's a good point. And again, I'm not as a matter of preference, everyone is going to find something unattractive about their significant other. It's inevitable. And so the question you have to ask is why? Do they find it unattractive because most of the men they find doing it are not being functional adults, or do they just have a dislike for the hobby? I find that often is a thing about video games. I feel that there's an overlap between people who just don't like video games and then people who say that video games are bad. And I think the reason they say that is because they just don't see the appeal in them, which to me makes no sense. Eamon says, I would choose video games due to the controlling nature of the ultimate. Exactly, yes. So it depends on the state of the relationship. If you're already married, then you've got things to work on, and I think for a time being you might want to consider scaling back the video games at least to figure out what's going on. But if you're not in the relationship, if you're not in a marriage, and you just started dating, especially if you just started dating, get out. But if you've been together for a long time, take some time to figure out where your significant other is coming from and determine whether or not that's actually a healthy response, I think. Tim says, right, if the hobby isn't healthy for the individual or the relationship, then it should be examined as a thing to keep or let go. It's like if I were to post something like, my kids really were hungry in the morning, but you know, I needed to get my alone time, so I told them to go wait for an hour while I finished my game. I feel like that would get me a lot of hate. Even on a place like X. Tim says, like, if one partner spends all their time on video games and they're legitimately neglecting their... Yeah, exactly. Which is that's basically the Tolkien response to fantasy, like reading fantasy. It's equating the flight of the escapee with the flight of the deserter. Like those are two different things, and one is admirable, actually. Someone trying to escape a quote-unquote prison, and someone deserting their duty.
It's on now, King Cannon.
Yes.
Take this.
Tim says, I think the concept of alone time is foreign to a lot of people. I wonder what percentage of people would be offended if their partner such sat down and said, I love you, but each day I'd like to have a little bit of time alone. I think if it's phrased that way, I think most people would be okay with that. But yes, I mean, that's an understanding me and my wife have, is that, you know, it's something I don't think she fully appreciated at the very beginning, even though it's something that we talked about. But I think over time, we were at a point in our marriage where I can be like, where I can do stuff like that, and she didn't get offended at offended. Alone doesn't mean just not interacting. It means I need to be alone. Another post that came as a result of that one was someone mentioned how they just don't see how video games are worthwhile, and they mentioned how reading and other hobbies are much better. And while I do agree that video games can be pretty overstimulating, especially for kids, it always baffles me how the logic is something like, you'd never begrudge someone for going to an art exhibit and looking at art for hours, or sitting down and listening to a piece of music, or sitting down and doing a crossword puzzle, or watching a good movie. You know, that seems to be pretty socially acceptable, but as soon as you say, you take all those things, you cram them together into one experience on a screen, then you're a man-child, or you're wasting your time, or there's no benefit to doing that. I cannot understand why people don't take the extra logical step and see it that way. I think that the issue is the time sink, and there are a lot of people who have unhealthy relationships with video games. I think that is a possibility. Some people can do that. So I think they take that and apply it to one thing, and they take this is a logical connection I think applies here. They say, okay, well, if video games do that, then therefore they're bad. If they're designed to sink in a lot of time, then therefore they're just bad in general. Ironically, this is an argument that I'm a conservative person, and a lot of conservatives typically tend to be against video games. I mean, I could say, well, a gun is designed to kill things, so therefore, if it's designed to do something that's bad, and people have a bad relationship to it, maybe we should just, say that it's not good to have guns then, right? That's the same logic, right? But they'll say, no, guns don't kill people, people kill people. Well, exactly. Video games don't cause people to waste time. Irresponsible people waste time with video games.